Okay, so, well, today is January the 30th, 2025. Welcome to Salons of Spirit. And so today, what we're going to talk about is the 17th Amendment. Now, the 17th Amendment, the reason I'm talking about this is because it seems like there's a lot of focus and attention to the Constitution lately, and people are reading it, and I think that's just awesome. We need everybody to read it. We need everybody to study it. They need to study their history and how the Constitution came about. What were the principles involved, and the rules and all that sort of thing. Because we've lost a lot of our freedoms because we don't understand our constitutional law at all. We don't understand the rules. People are lazy and they don't want to know. They didn't want to know in the past. And I'm hoping that some younger people will be watching some of this and maybe they'll focus on this as well. I think it's really important. And I really hope that anybody who, my intention is for this to get to the people who need to know, who need to see this stuff and learn it. So that said, we're going to talk about the 17th Amendment. So what was the 17th Amendment? The 17th Amendment changed the way that the senators were chosen. So we had a system, they set up originally a system wherein the federal government was created by the state governments and the people together. So the states had a right of suffrage, i.e. the right to vote and representation in the Congress. And that was through the Senate. So when you take the Congress, you've got the people who vote for representatives, and then you have over here the states. That's supposed to be an E, and you have the senators. And they go to Congress. So we have two houses of Congress. Everybody pretty much knows that. All these people are senators. The senators and the reps are congressmen, or congresswomen, congressmen. But they're members of Congress. But Congress is two houses, not just the representative, what a lot of people say. So the states are actually representing the senators, and the reps are representing the people, are represented by the senators, and the people are represented by the representatives. Now, it goes a little bit further because there's nobody else representing, there's nobody that elects the people. But you have another layer over here, and this was originally the legislatures of the states. The legislatures, they're the ones that actually elected the senators. The legislatures, the states are actually, let me change this a little bit, because these guys are, that basically. But these are legislators, T-O-R-S. And I'm not doing this right. O-R-S, legislators. In the state, they elected and choose the senators, but the relationship is the state is the entity. So this is the entity that is involved in the creation of this federal system up here, the federal government. And the people are the other part, because the states are another layer, right? So now the people are still down here, ultimately, and they chose the legislators in the states. And the reason it's set up like this is because, they knew that you're hearing a lot of things in the news about populism. How that terrible that is and all that. Well, why do they keep saying it's terrible? It's rather funny how the certain party was saying it's so terrible, but it wasn't terrible when populism was choosing presidents that say, we got to have a change. Never told you what the change is going to be till it's too late. But anyway, the people react emotionally to things that happen. The average person that doesn't study politics, doesn't look into things, doesn't understand, is not educated on these things. And there's a lot of people like that. And there's people that don't, they don't really want to mess with it. But if you convince them that they're going to get something for free, they'll go out there and vote for it. They don't think about the fact that all the money, there's no such thing as a debt that's not paid. And that's right. That's a question. That's one of my things I wanted to talk about. There is no such thing that a debt that is not paid, period. It doesn't happen in this universe. And we're going to talk about that at the end. I want you to think about it because it's something to ponder. And I want to try to make sure I don't forget to bring that back up. So I'm going to make a note up here, and hopefully debt not paid. So if I remember that. All right. So now the Congress has the two different groups. The people and the state legislators as an entity are represented inside the Congress. They used to be. So there's a section in the Constitution, and it's Article 4, it's Article 5. And there's only one section in Article 5. And it says that it's talking about some changes that could be made in this particular part of the Constitution. And it says, provided that no amendment which may be made prior to the year 1800, this is year 1808, 1808, shall in any manner affect these particular areas, which is the first and fourth clause of the 9th section of the first article, and that no state, and then it says separately. That's one thing. The separate thing it says is that no state, this is talking about amendment process. So the whole thing is all about amending. That's what Article 5 is about, changing the Constitution. But it says in here that they can't change, that take away the state's suffrage in the Senate. So that's what this is. The state's right to vote, they are represented by the legislator. Legislation, I should say it right. The legislator is a group that, legislature is these guys, and they are actually representing the state of your state, whatever state it is, and ours is Texas, and those guys are represented in Congress, that whole government system, as an entity. Like a people or entity, basically. A people is people, but an entity is named that so that it kind of differentiates from being humans. But anyway, that's their representative. So these two groups are represented. Well, it's a contract, it's an agreement. Then this is how we're doing things. Well, they went in there and they changed the Constitution with the 17th Amendment, and they removed this whole layer in here. So this layer, this went away. They no longer are represented in this Congress. They lost their representation. And this all went away. And it basically now has two houses are both represented in both houses of Congress directly. There is no state involved anymore. So they basically just took one of the parties and they said, you don't have a say anymore. Now, the interesting part about this, and I ran across this, a long time ago, and I said, well, that's interesting that it says that no state without its consent shall be deprived of its equal suffrage in the Senate. Now, since this just has to do with amending the Constitution, it's pretty obvious that this is an exception out of the rule of amending the Constitution. That means that the states couldn't have their suffrage taken by using the amending process of only having to have 3/4 of the legislatures of the states, 3/4 of the states ratifying an amendment. It doesn't matter if they did that or not. It still couldn't take any state's suffrage away from them out of the Senate unless they ratified that amendment. That's giving their permission. And so I went and I did a little bit of research and I checked it out, and I found out that these are the following states. Now, this is on usconstitution.net, and they have the state amendment grid, the state AM grid-HTML. And in the 17th, they list the amendments here on this little grid. I can't show it to you. Well, I mean, I can hold my computer up to you, but it doesn't really matter. And I haven't got all this stuff hooked up there. We're just still using the camera. Now, I'm working on that. That's one of the things why I haven't been here. I'm working on that. So anyway, the 17th Amendment was not ratified by, and they didn't respond to it. They didn't submit it, or it says there's no records, is what the system says, for Alabama, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. Am I looking in the right column here? I'll make sure it's 16th, 17th. Now that's the 16th on the Pennsylvania. Rhode Island, South Carolina, and Virginia. But you guys can go look up and see the exact names. I don't know if I got it all right or not. But anyway, it says that 77% of the state legislatures approved the amendment to take away the suffrage of the states in the Congress. They can't do that. It says you can't take their suffrage away. And those states that voted no or didn't respond should still be electing their senators from the legislature. And they're the only ones who are actually representing the state government in Congress. Because the people don't represent the state. They can't talk for the state government. They don't have any input on that side of it. They're not represented in the Congress here. They're represented in the Congress over here. They're not supposed to be on both sides. The Senate, the states are supposed to be over here. And they took that away. I think that fundamentally caused a problem. And I think a lot of these bills that have been passed in Congress that didn't have those states. They had those states voting, but their people are now being, their senators are now being elected directly. Legally, that's not the way it's supposed to be. Those guys don't have standing to stand inside that room and vote. Because they can't have that suffrage taken away. So the Senate, the legislature of the state has to have their representation, and that's in the Senate. And those states didn't agree to give it up, but the other ones did. So anyway, that's an interesting thing. So, something else. I want to also tell you about this little situation. You know, it's funny. The 16th and the 17th Amendment were passed in the same year. 16th Amendment was 1913. Was it 1913 or 1916? No, it had to be 13 because it would be 4, because this one was passed in or ratified in 1913 on April the 8th. So it was before, obviously, the 16th. And so I thought it interesting that this amendment that messed up the structure, the legal structure of the Congress, happened to happen at the same time the Federal Reserve is trying to get in here. But anyway, thought you find that interesting. And I need to go back and make sure that's correct. But if it's not, then I'll make another section. All right, debt. There's no such thing as a debt that is not paid. And some of you that I've talked to before probably know what I'm going to say about this, but I've asked a lot of people and I tell them there's no way that you don't have a debt that's paid. And I gave an example. If I loan somebody anything, it could be bananas, it could be anything, then I loan it to them and they got to pay me back. Well, we're going to pause this and come back. We're talking about debt. So my original question was debt. A debt there's no such thing as a debt that's not paid. So if I borrow something from somebody else, let's say I borrow, it doesn't matter what I borrow, it could be money, it could be anything, but let's just say $100. And I know we're not talking about the real dollars, I'm talking about Federal Reserve dollars. So $100. And I borrow it, I loan it to somebody. And then that somebody doesn't pay me back, but the loan gets paid. Who pays it? Think about that. Who actually pays the debt? If they don't pay me back, who's going to pay? Now you get points if you if you figure this out already. So I'm going to tell you, the person who pays is the person who loaned the money because they lose the money. So I pay for the debt. If I can't collect it from them, then I pay it. Now think about that principle. And think about that principle and all the money that's been created since the Federal Reserve got created, and all based on loaning it into existence. And who actually loaned it into, and who actually created it? Well, we did individually, because we're the ones that signed the document. The Fed just turned around and substitute their little notes for our note and swap this out. And they get to keep the interest-bearing note, which why would they get the interest-bearing note since you just borrowed your own money? Since the system allows you to create money through debt, and it's your debt, it's your money. So you don't owe anybody anything because you're the one that made the money in the first place. And the interest doesn't go to them, it should go to you. So they actually owe you the money and the interest back. But anyway, the point I'm getting at is there's no such thing as a debt that's not going to be paid. And who's going to pay? Well, if the banking system starts having serious trouble with all this money they're printing and all this money they've been printing the last especially the last 4 years. It's been getting bad, but it's gone nuts the past 4 years. So what's going to happen? At some point, somebody's not going to be able to pay it. And that paper is going to become exactly what it has always done in every situation like this in the past. The paper will become worth nothing. People will say it's a collapse and that kind of stuff. And maybe I'll do another video because I'm saying, no, this is getting off into another subject. So we'll do another one and we'll talk about that sometime. See y'all later. Oh, like and subscribe and all that.